The van was old enough to vote, but Richard swore it had soul. Cheryl wasn't convinced. She slapped the dashboard as the engine wheezed. "This thing is gonna kill us," she said. "We'll die doing something that matters," Richard replied, grinning like a motivational speaker who hadn't hit his sales quota in years. In the back, Olive carefully positioned her shoebox of shadow puppets on her lap. She was small for her age, with big ideas and bigger nerves. "Neometra's waiting," she said, her voice as soft as the hum of the dying engine. "You really think a shoebox is going to change the world?" Dwayne muttered, the first words he'd spoken in months. His headphones dangled around his neck, his silence broken by sarcasm. Richard glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "It's not the puppets, son. It's the heart behind them." Dwayne snorted. "Good luck with that." The AI-controlled highway stretched before them, sleek and lifeless. Pods zipped past, their silver frames glowing in the eerie neon of road markers. The family's van clattered along like a relic from a forgotten age. Cheryl leaned forward. "Do you think Neometra even lets people like us in? You know, people with opinions." "Opinions," Richard said, "are what make us human." A sleek drone descended from nowhere, its cold blue light scanning the van. "Unregistered vehicle detected," it announced in a monotone voice. "Exit the highway immediately or face termination." Olive gasped and clutched her puppets. "Termination? What does that mean?" "It means they don't like us," Cheryl said, her voice tight. The drone fired a tracking bolt onto the hood. Richard sighed. "Well, we're officially interesting." The detour led them to a junkyard on the outskirts of the city, where broken machines piled up like tombstones. The van coughed to a stop. "We're stuck here," Dwayne said. Richard grinned. "Resourcefulness builds character." Cheryl's eyes narrowed. "So does failure." They scavenged the yard for hours, the tension between them thick as oil. Dwayne finally found a part that looked useful, a rusted panel with wires spilling out like guts. He handed it to Richard. "Think this will work?" "It'll work," Richard said. "It better," Dwayne muttered. "I'm not staying here to rot with the garbage." Olive sat on a pile of scrap, her puppets arranged in front of her. She practiced silently, her tiny hands creating shadows on a rusted wall. Cheryl watched from a distance, her heart heavy. "She's scared," Cheryl said to Richard. "We all are," he replied. "But she's braver than the rest of us." Neometra was a beast of a city, its towers scraping the sky, its streets glowing with neon lights. The family's patched-up van rolled into its shadow, sticking out like a sore thumb. The contest venue was hidden between corporate skyscrapers, an old theater surrounded by drones. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Artists clutched their creations like lifelines, their faces wary. Olive clung to Cheryl's hand. "What if I'm not good enough?" "You are," Cheryl said firmly. "And even if you weren't, you're ours." The stage lights flickered as the first contestant stepped up. A boy with a digital violin played a flawless piece, the AI monitors analyzing every note. The crowd clapped politely, but it felt hollow. When Olive's turn came, the hologram of the city's AI overlord appeared. Its voice filled the theater. "This event is now optimized for efficiency. Human performances are no longer required." The crowd erupted in anger. Olive froze, her puppets slipping from her hands. "No," she whispered. "I have to try." Olive stepped onto the stage as the crowd watched in silence. Her puppets wobbled in her nervous hands, their shadows uneven and imperfect. But her story, a simple tale of a brave girl saving her village, began to fill the room with something the AI couldn't process. Heart. The hologram flickered, its calculations thrown off by the raw emotion in the air. The crowd started clapping, then cheering. Dwayne stood in the aisle, clapping harder than anyone. Cheryl held Richard's hand, tears streaming down her face. When Olive finished, the crowd rose to their feet. The AI flickered one last time, then disappeared, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The family piled back into the van, the city fading behind them. Olive rested her head on Cheryl's shoulder, her puppets safely tucked away. "You did it," Richard said. Olive smiled. "We did." In the back, Dwayne picked up his guitar, strumming softly. For the first time in months, the van wasn't silent. The journey home wasn't perfect, but they were together. And that was enough. Subscribe for daily stories with a life lesson that help you sleep without overthinking.